Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Reader, which will run every Friday and collect news and views from around the hockey world on the week's biggest stories. Seen something worth highlighting here? Hit me at Greg Wyshynski at ESPN.com, or do the same if you have suggestions for the column going forward. Enjoy. Ovechkin and Putin. Alex Ovechkin announced something called Putin Team this week on Instagram. And for a hot second everyone was excited that he was releasing some brand of Russian poutine. Alas, it was actually the most overt endorsement of Russian President Vladimir Putin that the Washington Capitals captain has made to date, establishing a social movement to show everyone how strong and united Russia can be. Quote, with that, Ovechkin graduated from wearing Putin t-shirts and dropping the occasional message about Russia's meddling in sovereign nations to being the Flavor Flav hype man for a Russian president seeking re-election. Having covered him for several years on the Capitals beat, I learned that Ovechkin has as fervent a patriotism as I've seen from a pro athlete. Editor's picks. Ovechkin forms social movement backing Putin. Capitals captain Alex Ovechkin took to his Instagram account Tuesday to throw his support behind Vladimir Putin ahead of next year's Russian presidential election. Power rankings. Most troubling trends for each team. The Blues have taken the lead in the latest rankings, but close behind them are the Lightning and Kings. However, all three and the other 28 teams have a little something about them that has us worried. The NHL 7 must-watch teams splurged on NHL TV and don't know which games to pick each night. These are the teams that stand out above the rest, due to high scores, captivating individuals, feel-good stories, or all of the above. 2 related. With this escalation, Ovechkin has a lot to answer for. He's playing in Washington, D.C., and it's not exactly glasnost between the U.S. and Russia these days. He's supporting a world leader who has been accused of nothing short of crimes against humanity. He's a professional athlete taking an overt political stance at a time when athletes who do so are skewered on social media at best, ostracized in the real world at worst. Perhaps the best defense for Ovechkin against that demonization as Americans is indifference to world news and foreign policy. If you're looking for Ovechkin to answer for this, as Jeff Blair of Sportsnet and others are, keep looking. Note what he told the Washington Post on Thursday night. "I don't try to be politics man or someone like that," Ovechkin said. "I just support my president and just support my country because I'm from there. And you know, if people from U.S. came to Russia, they care about what happening in U.S. So I care about what happening in Russia because that's my home and that's where I'm from." Quote, as he has in the past. Alex Ovechkin is seeking a separation between patriotism and policy. Can one really create a social movement for a politician while declaring he's also not trying to be politics man? Maple Leafs coach Mike Babcock has been feeling the heat since his young team fell back to earth following a blistering start. Nathan Dennett, the Canadian press via AP. The Great Leafs panic. The Toronto Maple Leafs lost 2 of 3 games during their California road trip, are 5-5 in their last 10 and are now on pace to finish 1 point out of the predicted playoff cutoff point in the Eastern Conference, which means it's time for early season panic in Toronto. Of course, Maple Leafs coach Mike Babcock is getting slammed for his player usage by editor-in-chief. The team looks broken, according to James Myrtle, and obviously Auston Matthews can't do it alone. The California trip will come to define the Leafs, according to Last Word on Sports. Look, Toronto is fine. The Leafs are young, they're learning. They are still a top 10 team in possession despite an ongoing effort to find their defensive identity. If there's any point of concern for me, it's how pedestrian many of the players in Toronto's bottom 6 have been. which is why depth on paper doesn't always correlate to depth in reality. Jersey Foul of the Week. In fairness, when I'm writing Anthony Beauvillier's name, I usually nail the first couple of letters and then let God sort it out. Carey Price is not right. Carey Price is often portrayed as a helpless victim to the Montreal Canadiens' overall ineptitude. But let's be real, he's been absolutely terrible this season. Carey Price, once the consensus best goaltender in the world, has struggled mightily this season for the Canadiens. AP photo, Hannah Fosline. Price has an even strength save percentage of .877 through 11 games and is 3.71, which is by far the worst for any goalie with more than 7 starts. He's 13th in low danger save percentage, 982, for goalies with 300 minutes played. In goals saved above average, essentially. How many goals an average goalie would allow if he faced Price's shot volume? Price is 30th in the NHL at a -9.5. Last season, he was 5th at +14.9. Via Corsica. Eric Engels writes that the real Price is nowhere to be found, while Stu Cowan is rightfully calling for the franchise goalie to turn the franchise's season around. Meanwhile, Omar White is having a meaningful debate about the merits of trading a player whose 8-year, $84 million contract extension doesn't kick in until next season. Please join us next week for another episode of As the Habs Burn. Quote, Ryan Johansson did something dumb. Quick question. When your team is down 2 goals at the San Jose Sharks with about 10 minutes to go in the third period, what's the best decision your one center could make? Is it staying on the ice and creating offense, as his new $64 million contract would indicate is in fact his task? Or is it to fight Joe Pavelski because he didn't like the hit the Sharks center put on him, taking himself out of a potential rally for 5 minutes? Asking for some friends in Nashville. Selena Gomez's deal with the Devils. It appears Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber might be reconciling, which is delightful news for fans of his and hers hockey jerseys. One recent sign, the time-honored tradition of the girlfriend wearing her boyfriend's hockey sweater, which the New Jersey Devils seized on here. It's never too late to say you're sorry at Justin Bieber. How about you and Selena join us at a Pro Center? We'll throw in the Adidas jerseys. Pic. Twitter.com, B5CKZ6AD47 New Jersey Devils. @Nudge Devils. November 2nd, 2017. Yeah, great. Just keep them away from the logo on the floor. Women's hockey merger talk. The New York Times wrote about the necessity for and the obstacles to a merger between the Canadian Women's Hockey League and the National Women's Hockey League, which is one of these annual discussions about something so logical and good for the game that will likely never happen until one of these leagues goes under. Sadly. Puck headlines. Dynamo Minsk had a great idea. Invite fans to dress up in Halloween costumes for a contest. Alas, many of those fans didn't read the fine print that noted a KHL ban on clothes and other means of concealing the identity, meaning that masks and makeup that make identifying fans difficult are not allowed. Hence, why the police were so upset. BBC. Semyon Varlamov set a Colorado Avalanche record in facing 60 shots from Carolina, and as per usual is pretty much the lone reason the AVs are thriving. Mile High Hockey. The NHL Bram Power Rankings, which is an interesting look at how teams look. Hockey by design. Perhaps the week's biggest news. It's Connor Sherry, not Connor Sheary. Quote, Pennsburg. Hockey TL. Dr. Too long. Didn't read. Tyler Dello with a long read on Dallas Stars defenseman Julius Honka. That's really about the broader debate regarding the perception that NHL coaches are stupid and the continuing debate over analytics as an exact science. In case you missed this from your friends at ESPN. Chris Peters released his top 31 prospects ranking, with some very high praise for American defenseman Quinn Hughes. Having closely tracked American prospects in particular for the past decade, I'm not sure I've ever seen a U.S. defenseman like Hughes. Quote,